3 Letters from Egypt. January 1st, 1897. Letter 1. Dear Philippa, our journey to Egypt has been a success. I write to you now from Alexandria. We traveled here from London via trains and steamships, and I realize I have not written to you once. I apologize. But sitting here in the warm morning sun on the first of the year, I finally have a moment to write to you in detail. Peter and I departed from London on December 26th. Even though we headed to Egypt for archaeological purposes, we chose to use the Paul Lawrence and Sons travel agency to book our travel. Using the agency kept the travel plans simple for us, and this helped ease our minds since we had so many details to work out for the dig. Paul Lawrence and Sons have established routes and favorite hotels. But you know us. We did steer off their path once or twice. One must leave room for adventure. We boarded the train in London, each with a small case for necessities. We traveled light, sending our surveying tools, brushes, and chisels in a trunk by cargo ship. I took a small notebook and pencil aside for journaling and sketches, and I'm relying upon both my journal and my memory to describe our trip to you. Our first destination was the seaside town of Brighton, where we would change trains and then cross the Chain Pier to Dieppe. The train to Brighton was peaceful, a light rain pitter-patting against the windows. I admit I may have dozed off listening to it rhythmically tapping the roof and glass. When the train slowed, I woke up and gathered my travel case, and we stepped out onto the rain-soaked platform. Peter slipped his grey woolen coat around my shoulders to protect me against the cold and wet. I felt the silk lining against my skin and the small tear at the hem where thread had escaped. The train platform looked out of the ocean. Lightning coursed through the sky, breaking through the dark and illuminating the pier and empty beaches. The waves curled into whitecaps and beat their way to the rocky shore. Despite the intensity of the scene, it reminded me of an oil painting one might hang in a gallery. I painted it with blues and greys and purples in my mind, and framed it in an ornate gold frame. Though my talent lies in sketching lifelike objects and artifacts, I resolved to sketch the scene and attempt to paint it some day. The platform, we were informed that no more trains were crossing to Dieppe that evening, as they were not certain whether the Chain Pier had suffered any damage. A concierge from a nearby hotel invited us to dine and stay for the evening, so we carefully picked our way to the hotel, where we ate a hot, delicious meal before slipping off to sleep in a luxurious hotel bed. I remember the silk sheet and down comforter well, since it was one of the few nights I slept in a proper bed. The following morning, we ate the continental breakfast. We checked out of the hotel and made our way to the train platform. The rain had stopped by then, but the heel of my boots sunk into the mud as I walked. Peter offered to call a carriage, but I loved the squelching sound. We made it across the street, and just as I reached the train platform step, a carriage drove by. The wheels splattered mud, and I leaped forward out of the way. Unfortunately, I fell into Peter, and we both found ourselves sitting in mud. We looked a sight, but no one said adventures were tidy. We laughed and made our way to the platform. dragging mud across the wooden floor. Peter inquired with the trainmaster about tickets. The man eyed us and smiled sympathetically. He informed us that the train pier had been damaged in the storm and no trains would be able to cross for many days. He advised that we try the docks, since many local fishermen and boys will shuttle travelers in exchange for payment. We thanked the man and walked to the docks, determined to forge ahead to Dieppe that day. Other travelers also waited at the docks, and several boats were offering their services. A young local gentleman who regularly made the journey between Brighton and Dieppe made space on his boat for us, and we climbed aboard. At one time, the boat had been white, but years of use had chipped away at the smooth surface, and the underlying wood eked out. The waves had calmed since previous evening, and our crossing was smooth. The oars glided in and out of the deep blue water, and I found myself thankful for the tranquil, open-air crossing instead of the train. Arriving in Dieppe, Peter paid the gentleman for his services, and we trekked to a cafe. While I enjoyed our boating experience, I relished the idea of hot tea for my chill bones. I stared dreamily around the cafe. It was sturdy wooden building with large front windows with a full view of the town. Marble-topped tables and cane chairs lined the walls, each table only providing enough seating for 3. I took out my sketch pad, intending to sketch the scene, but there was too much to take in. Out of the window I spied rolling hills and green pastures. I watched a farmhand herding brown spotted cows to graze, and I heard a few distant moos. Peter broke my reverie when he delivered cups of Earl Grey to the table. Our train for Paris would leave in 2 hours, and we settled in for a moment of rest. I asked Peter if he knew anything about the area, and he mentioned that Vikings used to come here. He told me that there was an active dig somewhere between Dieppe and Paris. My heart leaped at the thought. I wondered out loud whether we would be able to see the dig from the train. A dinner at a nearby table spoke up. She was a kind-looking older woman with graying hair at her temples, topped by a jaunty cap. She told us that we would not be able to see the dig from the train, but if we rented a motor car, we could drive by it. I clapped my hands and looked to Peter. His eyes sparkled back. We inquired where we could rent a vehicle, and she pointed the way. Within a quarter of an hour, we found ourselves sitting behind the wheel of a motor car and staring at the open road.